This is the Wizard DPS build like none you've ever seen. So it's taken me several attempts to film this because of my I just keep messing up when I've tried to test it, and I'm testing it on the boss training dummy here because, as you can see, one of my clan mates is next to the other dummy, and so their attacks and debuffs will be registering on that other mannequin dummy, whatever you want to call it, and that will affect my damage results as well. So obviously when you do test damage at the dummies, be careful to actually test it on a training dummy that is not in use, otherwise you will get a false result of what the actual damage is from the build that you're using. So this build I'm not going to take credit for. I did not make this build myself. This is by my friend Nedra, and he's been really helpful on the Diablo Immortal forum, and no one has actually showcased his build yet, so I wanted to make a video and show you guys exactly how incredible this build is. Obviously I get a few mispicks being on mobile, so it could be stronger. Whoop, I was a little bit late pausing it there. It could be stronger if you're on PC or if you play on mobile with a controller instead of with the screen like I do. So obviously in 1 minute we have 15.85 million damage per second, and we have 967, so minus 15,955 million damage for 1 minute. 955 million in 1 minute, which is insane. So close to 1 billion. I'm sure if I was playing this on PC I could get 1 billion quite easily, but yeah, I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. So having a look at the breakdown here, we've got a lot of damage coming from Black Hole, a lot of damage coming from Lightning Nova, small amount from Disintegrate. So Disintegrate is possibly the one skill that you could replace with something else. May test this eventually with a different skill there and see if we can make this even stronger. And then we've got 63 million damage coming from Legendary Gems, 2 million from Familiars. Again, could make this stronger if you have stronger familiars than what I do, and 24.9 million coming from miscellaneous, so that will be things like Warband buff when you click on it here. Other damage sources logged through primary attack skills and legendary gems will be recorded here. Examples: set bonuses, reforge family bonuses, ancestral properties, curse gear, etc. So yeah, that'll be your curse properties, that'll be your reforges, and any warband buff that you're using. So I'm using the attacker buff like I normally do, but I will go into all of that once we've tested this out in a Halikri raid and in a dungeon as well. So let's get to it. So we've tested this in the training ground. We're now going to go ahead and test it on one of the Inferno 8 bosses. I don't know why it came up with Inferno 9 then. I haven't done any Inferno 9 bosses yet. I don't have the combat rating for the last boss, so we're going to go with Thorncrown Stalker of the Deep Woods, and we're just going to go straight in on my own for this and see how quickly this build takes down the boss. Obviously we recently tested another build of mine that I'd put together. This one, as I said, is Nedra's build, and I wanted to show you this because it is even stronger than what I last shared, and it's also good to have different build options. I'm actually going to make a video this week about different builds, what I use and why, and what instances I use them in. So here we go. We've actually got 18.6 million, 18.06 million damage per second here. And yeah, insane. Literally took the boss down in moments. There's some really nice burst damage with this build, which we'll go through as I continue in the video and go through all the ins and outs of everything. So let's now head into a dungeon and see how we can do in a random dungeon party. So we have one of my favorite dungeons here, which is I always forget what it's called, Destruction's End. So we're going to see how this build fares in this dungeon. You see already really nice amount of damage from this setup, and taking down all of the monsters. I'm going to go through reforges and everything as well in this setup. I'm using slightly different reforges to normal, but yeah, this build forming very nicely here as well. It's always good to see something that's actually versatile and that isn't just performing well in one thing. Sorry, I've listed a bunch of stuff on Vinted again, and so you're going to probably have loads of notifications come up. As I've said before, girl's going to make her money somehow, so that's that's how we fund our Diablo Immortal bundles. So damage has gone down a little bit. It's mainly because of pauses like this. I do wish that the damage tracker would actually pause in between when there are periods where you can't do damage, where there's obviously no monsters or anything like that, because it is a little bit frustrating having to pause your damage and seeing that dip in damage when it isn't really accurate, because obviously there's nothing for us to kill at certain moments in dungeons. So yeah, let's see if we can continue to keep top DPS in this dungeon run. And obviously we have got the bountiful, I think it's called, modifier, which gives you some of those extra orbs. So we've got like the alchemical orb there. We've had frenzied orbs drop as well, so do bear that in mind. Damage may be slightly different because of that, and as I said, the damage per second never looks as good in these instances because you do have the pauses in between being able to do damage due to waiting for things like Zoltan to actually open the barrier. He always is. I swear he's just as slow as the supply officer. If you're an immortal and you have the supply officer for Corvus, it's the most frustrating thing. He takes forever. So there we go. Our damage has gone up a little bit. We've got 7 million per second now. And let's see if we can continue with this. And see if we can, as I said, keep that top spot for damage on this run. What's going on? Have they not taken down the last thing? Now I'm going to get knocked back. That's what I was trying to avoid. I thought it was already taken down, but obviously there was that one mob that wasn't. And damage is increasing a little bit again here. Now when I run this on normal dungeon, I can take Val down really easily without having to like get knocked back at all. Almost down here now. So there we go. We have got the highest damage in this dungeon at 7 million per second, which isn't that high, but like I said, it is frustrating when you have pauses in your damage. You can't really do anything about that, but it still gives you an idea of how this is performing. And it is still nice to be top damage in a party as well, especially with randoms. So let's now take a look at the breakdown of everything in this build. There's a few things that I've changed out. So Nedra, if you're watching this, please don't kill me for the things that I've changed. So starting off, we'll have a look at set items. We've got 4 pieces of Virtus here. So this increases the duration of all beneficial effects on you or your party members by 30%, increases the target's attack speed by 30% for 3 seconds each time you use a skill to grant a beneficial effect to yourself or a party member. We're also using 2 pieces of Skybreaker's Bolt. Dealing damage unleashes a lightning blast at the enemy's location that shocks all nearby enemies, dealing 9,893 damage per second for 3 seconds. Cannot occur more often than once every 6 seconds. If another source applies this effect to the same target again within 6 seconds, the duration will be reduced to 70% each time it is applied. And then lastly, we're using 2 pieces of Feasting Barons, which increases the duration of your harmful effects by 30%. So moving on to the legendary items, we're using Terminus Facade on the helm. Slow time now causes you to enter a temporal flux, causing your non-channeled skills to reduce the cooldown of all your other skills and increase your movement speed. Slow time's cooldown cannot be reduced by this effect. Slow time cooldown reduced by 7.2% and an additional 10% from the awakened slot. I'll move on to cursed properties once I've talked through the items. We're using Isolated Storm on the chest. Lightning Nova now calls a lightning orb to orbit you, dealing lightning damage to enemies it hits. Lightning Nova damage is increased by 18% and an additional 10% from the awakened slot. War Mage Mantle on the shoulder. Disintegrate now launches a small arcane sphere that bounces between you and multiple enemies, dealing damage and shattering the armor. Disintegrate damage is increased by 18%. Disintegrate damage is increased by 10%. We've got Hastened Oblivion on the pants. So with these ones, Disintegrate's cooldown is reduced by 1.6 seconds when damaging enemies, up to a maximum of 4.8 seconds. Disintegrate damage is increased by 10%. Radiant Spines on the main hand. With this one, when Lightning Nova deals a critical hit, it emits a charged bolt that deals 15,994 damage. Cannot occur more often than once every 1 second. Damage is increased 90%. Lightning Nova damage increased 10% from the awakened slot. Trifling Piffle on the first offhand. When Lightning Nova hits a shocked enemy, it unleashes another Lightning Nova. Cannot occur more often than once every 4.5 seconds. Lightning Nova cooldown is decreased by 10%. Ossified Chromaterra on the alternate main hand. Slow time increases your skill damage by 22.8% for 3 seconds. Slow time cooldown is decreased by 10%. Chaos Rupture on the alternate offhand. This one is Black Hole instead. Conjures an unstable star which explodes when it expires, damaging nearby enemies. Black Hole damage is increased by 18% and Black Hole cooldown is decreased by 10%. You guys, I always get my words wrong. I hope you are accepting of this by now. So with the cursed properties, we've got Detested. Create a dark void beneath you that lasts for 6 seconds when you use a skill that causes loss of control. Enemies take 24% of your damage every second. For every second they remain within that area. Additionally, the damage dealt to enemies in the void is increased by 6%. Effect cannot occur more often than once every 50 seconds. Also using, where is it? That's the same one. I've got 2 other curse properties. I think this is the next one. Wired. After you kill an enemy, release a surge of lightning that jumps 6 times between nearby enemies and deals 60% of your damage to them. Effect cannot occur more often than once every 30 seconds. And lastly, we are also using Atrophied. When you deal continuous damage to an enemy, a dark field will appear underneath them, dealing 24% of your damage every second for 6 seconds to enemies that remain in the area. Effect cannot occur more often than once every 90 seconds. Now, another couple of things to mention on this build is that I am using some of the, Eternal properties as well. Why can I not find them? It's going to be one of those days. Okay, so Black Hole emits arcane missiles from its center that attack random enemies, dealing 6,913 damage. We have 4 pieces of that, so that makes this build even more powerful, which is why Black Hole was dealing so much damage on the dummy test. Also using 2 out of the 4 Lightning Nova increases your attack speed by 8% for 3 seconds. If I had 4 out of 4, that would make this build even more powerful, but as with legendaries and set items recently, I've not had any luck to be able to actually get that on more gear or even be able to craft it on my gear, so it is what it is at the moment. That is what we've got. Now, looking at legendary gems for myself, I'm using Blood-Soaked Jade, I'm using Surging Sea. I'm going to show them on the screen, but I'm not going to read through them. You can obviously pause the video or read through them while I'm talking about them if you want. I've got Roiling Consequence here as well. I'm using Blood Flow legendary gem, which is really powerful. Using Void Spark, this works beautifully in this build. Even if you are a low spender, I would really recommend trying to get Void Spark in any kind of build that uses shock for wizard. I'm using Bottled Hope here. If you want to use a different gem, I would recommend Entropic Well here instead. I'm using Wolfjord. And lastly, I'm using Colossus Engine. So those are the legendary gems that I've got. Now, a few of these have different buffs on them. So I have got the skill damage unlocked on all of these gems. I believe it's only Bottled Hope that doesn't have that. So yeah, it's only Bottled Hope, but I have increased skill damage from all 7 of the other gems. So that is going to make a really big difference in this setup. Now, other things that I'm using, I've got the Attacker Warband buff. So this one I use quite a lot. Damage done is increased 3.5%. Critical hit chance increased 1%. I've got that twice, so 2%. Increase your damage up by 1% for 2 seconds. Every time you deal damage, this effect stacks up to 10 times, but is removed if you take damage. Increase critical hit chance by 3% while above 70% of your total life. And increases critical hit damage by 10% while your critical hit chance is greater than 70%. We also have the Paragon to look at. Now, this is a different setup to what Nedra's using. And this one is kind of risky because it can drop out if you take damage. So we're using Bloodthirst. Using a skill while in combat increases the damage you deal 2 monsters by 1% for 10 seconds. Bloodthirst stacks up to 5 times, but all stacks are removed if you take damage. We've got Superiority. Bloodthirst and Fury now stack up to 10 times. We have Deadly Intent. Damage is increased by 2%. Fury, using a skill while in combat increases your critical hit chance by 1% for 10 seconds. Fury stacks up to 5 times, but all stacks are removed when you take damage. And then Static Discharge. When Bloodthirst and Fury are removed from taking damage, you discharge lightning damage up to 5 targets within 5 yards. Cannot occur more often than once every 30 seconds. So obviously the reason why these ones are risky is because if you take damage, you will lose those stacks. However, I find this makes it a little bit more strong with regards, it gives me a higher damage per second in dungeons and also at the dummy when I've tested it. Then for the legendary skill, I've gone for Death's Release. When all your continual damage or harmful effects expire, they explode, dealing 30% of their total damage to all nearby enemies. Cannot occur more often than once every 10 seconds. Alternatively, you could go for Lightning Rod. I have used both of these in this setup. Dealing damage to an enemy 10 times within 3 seconds causes lightning to strike them, dealing damage to all nearby enemies. Cannot occur more often than once every 30 seconds. So that is what we've got in this setup. So we've talked about Paragon, we've talked about the legendary items, the set items, and the warband buff. So the other thing to look at is going to be the Reforges. So I'll talk you through what I've got. I'm going to bring Nedra's Reforges up on the left for you to have a look at as well. So I generally go for the Wildfire set. So this has a 2% chance when you defeat an enemy to summon a Fireball Spitting Hydra. But the 4 Reforges that I would say are important to make this build deal a lot of damage is the all skill damage increase, the critical hit damage increase, duration of beneficial effects, and attack speed increase. So those are all helping with actually dealing more damage. I do obviously have the primary attack damage here as well. The only reason I have that is to get the wildfire bonus there. So there are different family bonuses. As you can see, Nedra has gone for the vengeance bonus, and when you click here on the little magnifying glass, it can actually show you the benefits of all of the different family bonuses as well. So that's what I'm using for Reforges. Now I'm going to quickly touch on familiars. As you know, familiars are not my specialty whatsoever, but there's a couple of things that I do generally try and look for in these. This is Maim, so this is increasing critical hit chance, and Finesse, which is increasing skill damage. Now I don't have this on all of my pets, unfortunately. I do have it here again on this Varrock, so I've got the critical hit chance increase there. Ideally, if you're wanting to make this build as strong as possible, and if you have the platinum store like funds for it, you could go for all pets with Maim and all pets with Finesse as well. That would make the build even stronger. Ideally, that's something that I'll aim for at a later date. You do need to have 5 different types of familiar with all of those things though. So you would have to have 5 different types of bonded and companion familiar to get the Maim and to get the Finesse active from all of them. You cannot have the same type of familiar. You will only get that bonus once. So that's generally what I go for in pets, even though I don't really have much of an understanding of them. Just Maim and Finesse are must-haves for me in my familiars. So the last thing I wanted to mention in this video is free-to-play gem options. So obviously I'm already using Surging Sea in this build, and I would highly recommend using that if you are free to play. Also, Entropic Well is another one that I would really recommend. Berserker's Eye is another 1-star gem, which is really powerful in this setup. And then as a 4th option, if you wanted another 1-star gem, I'd probably suggest Blessed Pebble, as this will increase the duration of your beneficial effects. Then moving on to 2-star gems, you've got Mother's Lament. That will increase your critical hit chance, so that kind of replaces Roiling Consequence if you are free to play. Pain Clasp, this will help with the duration of any of your continuous damage, so that will be things like any burn, bleed or poison effects that you may have. Alongside that, I'd recommend using Viper's Bite so that you do have a poison, and Spectre Glass, because this will help break enemy armor, so that is really beneficial against bosses, especially if you're running raids. And then 2 other gems to mention if you are free to play. These will take a little bit longer to actually upgrade due to them being from Battle Pass, but that is Fervent Fang and Grim Rhythm. So you can use both of those in this setup if you wanted to, in place of some of the 1-star gems. Obviously, if you're a mid-spender, again, work on Fervent Fang and Grim Rhythm. Those work really nicely in this. If you're not going to spend on any 5-star gems, those are what I would suggest to go for. So that is it from me for this video. A huge thank you and shout out to Nedra for sharing this build and allowing me to make a video on it. I really appreciate being able to bring information like this to the Diablo community and to people that aren't necessarily on Discord. So thank you so much for that. I hope you found the video helpful. Let me know your thoughts on this build in the comments below. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.
Official Diablo Partner.